Hello, Tahisha.
Hello, Melonya. How are you today?
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
Welcome, folks, to MT Fridays. I'm your host, Melonya Johnson.
And I'm Tahisha Timmons. I am also your co host here.
Yes, co-host. I'm co-host here. And so, what are we talking about today?
Today I'm talking a little bit about ICE, um, and particularly for health care in healthcare providers and nurses. So that's what I'm focusing on. Some And then just the randomness that floats through my brain.
I got you. And today, I really want to talk about conversations that managers might consider having with some of their employees that come from more marginalized communities that might be feeling impacted by the post inauguration move. So that's what's on my agenda today.
Love it, love it, love it.
Awesome. And so let's begin filling the brain drain, one unscripted conversation at a time. So, hello, you are kind of fuzzy on my
Uh,
end. Are you fuzzy on your end too?
so I am nothing on my end because I'm getting a circle on my end, but I'm gonna just power through. I don't know why it's doing that.
Yeah, you're kind of frozen. Yay.
Yay for
Welcome to
yay for
technology. So,
technology.
which topic would you like to start with first? You want me to start, seeing that you're kind of frozen and you might be trying to figure things out?
Uh, you so funny. Absolutely. And I will. Oh, did I unfreeze? Am I unfrozen now?
Mm-mm.
Am I unfrozen now?
You're you're
Am I?
you're starting to. Oh, there you are.
There
Hello.
I am. I'm glad I'm unfrozen. Yay.
Yeah. You look like you have an unstable something going on. You're unstable today.
Well, some people would say that's not a change now.
That's that's every day. So I'll kick us off, and what I want to talk about are is the fact that you know we are humans. Everybody is human coming into the workspace, and though we'd like to think that we leave whatever's going on in our personal lives at the door, we don't. We're human, and it impacts us. Whether somebody in your family is going through a health crisis, whether you're going through financial situations, whether you had an argument with your kid, right? You've got some real life things that come with you as a human being walking into the workspace. And I think that it's important for employers to know of those people who are coming from marginalized communities, your LGBTQIA communities, your BIPOC communities, your communities of differently abled, employees,
Disability. Yeah.
disabilities. Right? We're coming to the door of our workplace, be it virtual or in person. Some of us, I'm not going to put a label on everyone, but some of us are in a very tender place. And it's not due to politics. It's not due to this group won and this didn't, they didn't win, or I didn't win, and it's none of that, oh, they're just butthurt kind of thing. We're talking about being in a country that is really showing itself to be hostile to me and anybody that looks like me simply because of the color of my skin. And that's something that I can't ignore. And that's something that, for me, on a personal level, I have to deal with and try to reconcile with. And so it feels really artificial to walk through the doors of your employer and no one look at you and go, are you okay? Is everything okay? And I want to talk about, what creating space for that. Why, if you're trying to build relationships, again, this is not about politics. This is about connecting with people on a real level, on a personal level, on a I want to support you level. The kind of conversations that employers and managers might want to have.
And I love that you're talking about this and bringing this up as a conversation for us today, because I think it speaks to some of the fears around DEI. DEI, and DEIB, whatever you're going to call it, some of the things that it started to bring to light was that employers really were not making relationships with employees. I think it highlighted that. It highlighted the fact that many people felt like they could not be their authentic selves at work. They showed up every day, code switching, masking, whatever word you want to describe for how you got through the workday. And we started to have discussions around that. What does it look like to have a diverse workforce and also be authentic as an employer in your interactions with that person in respectful ways? To be thinking not just about the what is my profit margin going to be, but what does it look like to have employees who feel like they belong, employees who are engaged, employees who feel like their employer cares about them, so they give more because I value the fact that I am not just a cog in the machine, but an important piece of the process, and I collaborate and we communicate and we coexist together, and I am concerned about my company and their excellence and their ability to function in the market, not just from a superficial piece as an employee, but from a truly engaged, like I really do care because I feel like you care for me. And this isn't about politics, but it's almost like DEI was calling attention to the fact that the mindset of the employer who cares about you had disappeared as employers got so big. It got lost in the shuffle. What stayed was the return on investment, right? Like the ROI always stayed, the WIFM for them, oh, the what's in it for them stayed. But the WIFM for employees shifted. Like the sense of this company I work for is going to be there from my first day, because previously many people had this mindset of you find an employer, you love that employer, you work for that employer until the end of your days. Now most people don't stay at employers, and the question is why do we have high turnover, right? Because we're both working with very different WIFMs and ROIs, and Melonya had a funny name for the WIFM that we talked about offline. But I do think that that's a
With
huge
who?
piece of it. Yes. Explain what the WIFU is.
What with what's in it for me? With who? What's in it for us? But
Yes.
there's the fu at the
I
end.
did point out that there's a FU at the end, but I
Well,
do love the WIFU, right? Like what is in it for us collaboratively as employee and employer.
yeah,
So, and with the backlash on DEI, and the focus on, let's be distractors, let's play 3 card Monty
Molly.
shuffle or yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
whatever that is, and distract you from the real goal of this, which was creating engaged employees who felt like their employer cared for them, and helping employers to have better conversations and authentic conversations with employees. And somewhere that got lost. That thread got lost. It got covered up by, well, we don't want to, because we don't like difficult conversations as human beings, period. Because we all know that human beings don't like conflict. And some of this was bringing up some conflict because, there's the all of a sudden, really, that's what you think about working here, or that's what it's like to work here as a person of, a historically marginalized background or a person with disabilities. That's what really happens for many employers. It was eye opening to this, like, and it's not, here's your bad behavior on display, but how can we kind of work to a better goal? Like, how do we get through that and come out stronger at the end? And I do want to just, before I go, like, before I start my little tirade on this, I do want to just mention not all employers are pulling back on their DEI efforts. Many are still engaged in them. They're continuing to do them. And I know we've, like, the news that's been out there is how many people are frustrated with DEI and have withdrawn from it. But we also need to highlight those who are committed even more, who are staying in it for the right reasons. And these were the employers that were not performative to begin with. They knew that this was going to be a challenge, and they didn't think it was going to be happen overnight.
And I want to make 2 points. One point is this is Tahitia's wheelhouse. She is the the DEI, and especially as it relates to healthcare, expert on this call. She's an advocate. She is a coach. She helps organizations, with this type of work. But and also J.P. Morgan, I think it was, is sticking with their DEI initiatives. Costco, we'll keep that list. But what I call DEI, and if you're a Black person, oftentimes you are put in the DEI role just simply because you're Black. So everybody's kind of had to work that role as a Black person. But what I talk about when I talk about DEI, I talk about DEI in action. DEI is not about putting people into a job, right? Yes, it does touch on recruitment. It touches on these types of your recruitment efforts, your policies, your promotions. Those are the things that you should look at to always make certain that they're as bias free as possible, and that you are, so that you don't have groupthink within your organization, that you pull people with different perspectives. That is just diversity is a part of natural, a part of nature, right? The more diversified something is, the better it is in terms of its chance of survival. But DEI has a relationship level, and I call that DEI in action. In the conversation, let me put this in context. Let's say that one of your employees, the night before coming into work today, they had a fire at their house, right? And so they come in, you have a meeting scheduled first thing in the morning, they're there, and you get right into the agenda and go, okay, so you know what? I wanted to tell let me just tell you, you did a great job on managing this project, this, that, and the other. And you know what? Did I show you my? I got a picture of my niece. She had her little. Let me show you this, right? And you're going on, as normal as ever, and your employee is sitting there thinking, you said nieces. That reminds me of all the photos that I have that in photo albums and pictures on my wall that burned last night, and my grandmother's clock that I had, and all of the things that I lost, and I don't know where I'm going to live and leave at the end of this day. And that's what's going through their head while you're going through your checklist. The world has shifted for those people from marginalized communities in this country. It's not the same country. They're not facing the same realities. There is a great deal of concern and fear, right? And not fear, don't get it twisted, because there's going to be some resistance, okay? Right? We're not going down without giving it a swing, right? But very realistically, it's like, okay, I'm an African American. Are we trying to go back to Jim Crow? Is it going to be safe for me to travel and traverse this country? What is the environment? We have concerns. And for you not to lean in as a human, not DEI, but building relationships that really matter with your employees, to lean in and go, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm good. Really? Well, okay. Politics aside, I know there's a lot of things going on, and I just want to know how you're doing. And if there's something that I can do, if you need it, to support you right now, with what is going on with you, and have these real conversations. People may feel, if you put in the work, they may feel open enough to share with their reality with you. Or they may go, nope, I'm good. And they may very well be. But I think when you show your humanity to your employees and you show that you care about them beyond the clock, beyond the walls, then you start to build relationships with your employees that mean something. Because let me just say this: humans are creatures of habit. Folks don't want to have 5 million hustles. They don't want to leave a job. But if you pay me right, you treat me right, where am I going? If you keep me learning and investing in me, and even if it's not areas that necessarily relate to work, but you invest in my learning and my growth, where am I going? I'm not going anywhere, but you have to really care. And these are the conversations that would mean something to some of your employees from marginalized communities right now.
And so I'm going to play devil's advocate just because I feel like it. And isn't this what organizations are supposed to do, anyways? Aren't organizations or employers, ideally in a perfect world, supposed to check in
Yeah.
with individuals during times of crisis or times of? So I would imagine if I was in California, in Los Angeles, and I was an employer who a lot of people lived in Los Angeles, I would hope that the employer would do check-ins, right? Like, how are we doing as an organization? Like, do people need something? Maybe even do a town hall on here's how we're going to cope with this. So it sounds like what you're saying is, are we really, our employers really doing those check-ins for individuals, for people? I would love to hear from people at organizations. Have you seen town halls? Have you had managers check in with you? Have people said, like, hey, I know it's been like there's a lot going on in the world. Do you need anything? It seems like it's been a hectic start to 2025. Politics aside, every new year you should be checking in with your employees, right? Because every new year brings this, like, we make, like, I'll just do it from the superficial. Everybody makes resolutions, right? And everybody says they're going to do all of these things personally, internally, right? And then you have the January, February, I feel great, I feel down, I feel up, I feel all around. People should do check-ins the start of a
All
new
the
year
time.
anyways.
They should
They
check in all the time. You should check in you should check in all the time. This is not babysitting. This is not when you, again, do we do a podcast without mentioning Dr. Vivek Murthy, who talked about the epidemic of loneliness? When you start to look at generations coming up in the pipeline of work, connection is important. Purpose is important, right? And I don't even know if that's just with generations coming up. It's important to me, right? I attended a town hall today, and nothing was mentioned to say, you know what, we're not going to get into politics, but this is what we're going to guarantee everyone within this organization. We're going to guarantee that we are going to continue our core values of respect. We are going to continue our core values of treating people equally and equitably and fairly. We want you to know that when you walk through these doors or when you log into your computers, that you are in a safe place. And I think that is important because on a macro level, there are so many things that are assaulting our mental well-being. And to be in a workplace that looks at you as the whole. We care about your physical well-being, we care about your financial well-being, and we care about your well-being as a human. Because when you are in a good place as a human, you're going to come to our place of work and do the best work. And you're going to do it from a place that is generated from a sense of appreciation and loyalty, because you've treated me not like a commodity but like a human. And if you are a proactive a person in management or leadership or supervisory roles, these are the kinds of things that build relationships. When you stop to think that most people don't leave the job, they leave the manager. These are the coins that you deposit into the bank account of your relationships with these folks, that actually build the kind of work culture, workplace culture, and kind of engagement that you really want.
But I'm going to ask the question that employers probably think about in their heads, right? So I'm spending all this time and I'm making a relationship with you, and we're engaging. This sounds like fluff, right? Like I don't have time for this.
You don't have time not to do it.
I don't let me finish. I don't have time for this. We're a young startup. We need to focus on making the money or we're going to fail as a business. So I don't have time for that. We all have to be bringing our best effort to the table. I need to know that you want to be here. And if you want to be here, you need to work. I don't need to have a relationship with you. Like I hired you on merit. I'm going to bring out the merit word, right? I hired you because you're qualified and I don't need to do those other pieces. Why can't you just show up to work, do the job, and go home? Like, why do I need to care about you
Because
as an employer?
yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. Yes, I can come in do the job as prescribed on my in my job duties. But do you want that version of me, or do you want the version of me that is psyched? Do you want the version of me that is like, yeah, I know what my job duties are, but I'm going to take that and I'm going to raise that? You know why? Because it's my brand, because I'm invested, and because I'm following you. See, I always say this: a leader that has no followers is not a leader. A leader inspires greater levels of vision, of achievement, of connectedness, right? We're going in uncharted paths. I don't know where we're going, but I trust you. And I like you enough to want to see you win. See, you want to invest that time because you want your employees to want to see you win. What's in it for me? If
But
I don't care about you, I don't
that
care about, whether or not we blow the top off of our goals, or what we're trying to achieve.
but I'm paying you.
Yeah, and you're gonna get what you paid for, but when I'm engaged, you're gonna get more than what you paid for.
And I think that's the piece, right? Like the end piece. When you're engaged, you give a little bit more.
You do.
You are willing to perhaps volunteer, like you feel happier, so your time there doesn't feel so soul draining. Like you're not just showing up for the four-letter work. It's not just a job. It
Task.
becomes it's not just a task. It becomes something you become passionate about. And I'm not going to say like all jobs will inspire passion, cuz sometimes the work is just the work, right? Like it is a task, it is a job. But and I'm playing devil's advocate playfully because I do believe in everything that you're saying. But I know that there's places out there that are like, I don't need to make a relationship with you. I'm paying money. I like you should just do the work. And so that I'm gonna slide in HB1 visas, right? Like that's what they're called. I always mess up the name with that. But I'm gonna slide that in with the idea that one of the advantages in the dark advantages is you have a high level of control over visa employees. Like imagine not just your salary is tied to, like, the money is tied to the employer, but your ability to be in the country and your family's ability to be in the country is tied to that. So there's a different level of, I'm going to say something if I feel like something's not right, because it's not like, okay, I lose this job. I lose almost everything. And so to me, with some of this, like we don't have enough upskilled workers for certain areas. We need to bring in more visa to fill this need. Some of that also the part of my mind that is like darkness, right? Thinks like that's a very controllable employee population because there's an unspoken punishment if I am not performing a certain way. Um, if that makes sense to those out there, like imagine not just my salary, but my entire ability to be here shifts in a different way. I'm more afraid. And I'm not going to say, but I have talked with people who have visas at organizations that are actually pretty good, and they have this fear in the back of their heads, like if I lose this job, if I'm not a super performer, I, like, what about my kids that are going to school here? What about my partner? What happens to them? It's a lot of pressure. So,
Yeah, it is. And just to also just frame this, we're not AIs. We're not machines, right? You don't people will oftentimes in lip service say that, our employees are the backbone of our organization or our company, and they truly are. And if they are that important to you, then yes, you do take the time to invest in them and have real life conversations with them. I'm going to give you a quick analogy. I don't believe that there's any job that someone cannot be engaged in and put their full effort into. Your job could be custodial. Your job could be to clean the bathrooms, right? Do you want the type of employee that will push the mop around and can say, well, I mopped? Or do you want the type of employee that looks around and says, when I do an excellent job, the people in this company, they have a safe, clean environment that is welcoming to them. And so I'm going to put that kind of brand into my work. Not only am I going to mop the floor, I'm going to make sure that the water is clean. I'm going to make sure I get into the corners. I'm going to make sure when you come in, you feel like, this is fresh, right? What kind of worker do you want? You want the one that ticked the box, I did what is on my job description, or do you want the one that actually puts their purpose and their brand on what it is that they're doing? You only get that when you invest your time into building relationships with them. And go ahead and go poo poo on you, but then have a persistent rate of disengagement at 70% levels that has been consistently in the 70% level worldwide for decades, right? Is that what you want? If you want the status quo, continue to do what you're doing. But if you want an exceptional I don't even like the word workforce. If you want an exceptional team, right, then you invest in them. Take the time. Good managers do. They find the time.
I love that. I love that. I love that.
I always say great employees deserve great managers, right? Every employee deserves a great manager. So are you status quo manager? Are you treating people like, like robots? Or are you treating people like the valuable partners that they are to your overall success? That takes commitment, and it takes effort, and it takes skill. And that's where BSMART Coaching comes in, right?
But how do you think you do this in today's world? Like, let's be honest, a lot of places are afraid to even talk about a fair and economical workplace in the context of some perhaps blowback and fear about what could happen to them. I saw something someone wrote, I feel like so this was about something I'm going to talk about. immigration, right? And immigration is rapidly changing, and the policies are rapidly changing this week. And so, do you remember sanctuary cities or sanctuary states or cities or places? The last time that there was a big discussion around sanctuary cities was the last time this administration was in office. And then it was touted like, here are all the sanctuary cities, here's where they're located. States were very proud of them, cities were very proud of them. We're hearing a little less about sanctuary cities this time around, and even some of the shifts that are happening there. And I did see that some of the thought is, as you announce these things, right, this particular, in the US, I'm talking US, that some people are fearful about just how committed they are to continuing to steer the ship. And as you said, we're still going to have respect for people, we're still going to have our ethics and values and morals. That's not shifting. I think the thing that you mentioned, like people wanting to know that if they joined an organization or they were someplace because of their values, that's not changing. But I do understand that to announce this is a fearful and a brave move, right? Like, to say, like, we're going to stay the course. We're hearing less of that. And when people do come forward, or organizations do come forward, or cities do come forward and say, hey, we're still staying much the same, there's a fear and a hesitation, because even with the president doing preemptive pardons, right, that says that perhaps to speak of a different point of view or a different value, you might be a victim of targeting and what happens to you. So I do think there's like this, there's this underneath the surface, a level of fear from organizations and from government groups, like cities and towns, where they're fearful to say too much, fearful to say, like, here's how we operate. And I know I went a roundabout way to get to, I think people are afraid.
Yeah, I am. What's that saying? A brave person dies once, a coward dies 1,000 deaths. The level
I don't
of
want to die at all, though.
nobody does, but
Right?
but but
So
but I mean, no, but really, people do. It's figuratively, but there's rampant cowardice these days. And when you are afraid, to stand up for what is right. And here's the thing: nobody's asking you to the conversations, and just looping back a little bit to what I was talking about. It's not putting out some flag and waving attention. It is just person to person kind of communication. You don't, organizations don't have to make some profound, announcement. They can look at their managers, have conversations with their managers, and say, hey, we want to make certain that our people are good. This is what we're doing. Check in. But you should be doing this all the time. This shouldn't be something that you should be checking in with your people all the time. But if you don't stand up in the time that it is needed for you to stand up and to have a voice, then what are we doing? If everybody is a coward, which I'm seeing great demonstrations of, then you will get what the bully and the toxic society puts on you.
but I think we raise people to be extremely cautious in the US because we are a society tied to capitalism, right? So we're a capitalistic democracy. And much of what we do is tied to the WIFM, the return on investment. And when you have that mindset, and it's all tied on growth, year over year of growth, it is really hard to be brave if it means, stopping and really considering, are we doing the right thing?
Well, here's the thing.
And then what's the right thing?
Well, here's the thing. That model isn't sustainable, one. But two, if your value is money over people, then that's your values. Be honest about those values, right? And organizations and companies are. But however, don't expect, if that is your value, money over people, then to have people who are going to perform at some exceptional level for you, and to have some commitment to you, whether it be your organization or your city or pride or whatever it is that you are not standing up for. Your values are your values, and we live our values, right? But then don't have values that are anti support of humans, and then expect for those same humans to show up in some profoundly exceptional way. They're not. You're not making an investment in that relationship.
And I just want to say, I actually don't have a problem with organizations that are very transparent with we're about profit, we're about the money. But I do wish that it was very clear, right? Like we're a profit oriented company, we're about the money. And because we're profit and money oriented, we're not about the soft pieces, we're not about the social pieces. You're going to make a big salary here or you're going to make money here, but know that it's about the money. And I'm okay with that because for some people, that is their goal. Like, I want to make a lot of money and I want to be at a company that's going to make as much money as possible. I want those stock shares, and I'm down for that as long as that's very clear. Don't have a sort of generic general organization. I'm just going to throw Meta out there. I'm not like trying to say anything truly negative, but what I'm really saying here is if that is what you want the money, right? Then let me know that and I'll get in with Meta as long as I too, like as your profits go up, I get some profit sharing. I'll ride that. I'll ride that train as long as I know this is what we're about. Because then my expectation is nobody's checking in on me. How's your day, Tahitia? How's your profit day? Right? Like, not like, how are you feeling? Because I know you don't care. And I entered that space and I know it and I'm ready. I prepared myself. I emotionally am ready for that because it's about the money. And I wish, like you said, organizations were more transparent. Don't pretend to care, right? Let me know because most organizations, you want to make a profit. That's what they're if they're doing the job right and a CEO is doing the job right, they are making a profit. So when places like United Health Group like pretend to have some type of like, we're not just about the profit, we're also about outcomes and our employees. Your data, that's not showing through to me. Say, hey, we are the largest health group in the world, and we are about efficiency when it comes to money and making sure that our stock investors and our board hand over fist make money. Then, general public expectation, they're doing what they're supposed to do. But don't pretend to have a care, right? Like, I think that's what many of us find offensive is that they're trying to do both. They're trying to say, we care about all of these things, but the truth is, maybe you don't. And if we're capitalists, we really are, we're about the capital.
But here's the thing, and I, because I want to put some time into your topic, but here's the other thing too. What I'm suggesting isn't like taking 8 hours to hold a person's hand. It's checking in. It takes a few minutes to show that you care. It might not even be a conversation. It could be an email that says, "Hey, I'm just checking in with just want to see how you doing today. My doors are open. You can always stop in, right? It's not this laborious thing that you've got to do, and I've got to spend 40 hours a week.
Is
No,
it is it a temperature gauge? Like, those places that have like the post your like happy face or what temperature are we at? And then, like, are
It's
we in the
just
red
having
zone?
conversations, y'all. It's talking to people. It's taking a minute to say, when you ask somebody how they're doing, really listening on all levels. When they say okay, but there was a hesitation and there was a look in their face and there was a feeling that emanated from them to go, I don't trust that. Okay. Are you something going on? Can you do you need a second to share anything? And that opens the door. They can or they can't. But but it's just Jesus. Do I have to write a manual on just what it is to be human? We're not talking about anything spectacular. We're just talking about human connection. That's it. And you can do that in a for-profit, capitalistic environment. You can treat people like humans.
Can you?
You should.
That's different than just
Yeah,
because you should do something
I
doesn't
mean,
mean that you can.
but I think this too. I think that that even within those spaces, there are going to be managers that understand the value of developing relationships, and regardless of the focus, that's what they're going to do, and they're still going to get the return on that investment that other folks are getting, but they're going to have a staff that is much more motivated, much more innovative than some of the others who feel that there is the carrot and
The carrot and the stick.
the stick. It's just being human. Doesn't take all that much time to be human.
Does it take time to be human?
Doesn't take time. Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know why it's a discussion.
It's a discussion because of the humanized button on AI. So obviously it takes time to be human, right? And it takes energy and it takes all of those things.
Yeah, is there value
Or we
in?
wouldn't be talking about it.
No, but you know what I mean. I
I
mean,
I
in a larger conversation, like we're reminding people to be human. That's how far we've come. So, what about ICE? Tell me, what's ICE stand
ah,
for?
okay. Um, so you would ask me what ICE stands for, and like I'm not, I don't know. Okay, I'm
Okay.
just gonna say it. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not an expert on ICE,
Mhm.
but what I do, so really, what I want to call out to healthcare providers or healthcare organizations or wherever you're in healthcare spaces, is that there is a lot of shifts and changes going on with immigration policy this week and how that's all going to play out. We're still kind of learning about, but there's some administration changes that are administrative policy changes that have already kind of been signed off on. And so what I want to caution those in healthcare spaces is to remember we are also guided by HIPAA, which is protecting patients' privacy and their information and not sharing about that. So if they come to clinics and they come to hospital sites, remember HIPAA is also in place. And as healthcare providers, we can be legally accountable for violating the policies of HIPAA. So just remember that. If I should be on the unit, if I should be in your clinic, there's only so much that you can share. And the other thing is ICE does have warrants, but they're administrative warrants. They're not search warrants. They are, it's something different. So I think in the following weeks, we as not just healthcare, but anywhere you're working, you need to probably be kind of listening to what's going on in that area because it is so quickly changing and evolving the information that's coming out. And there's a lot of misinformation. And a lot of people get their information from social media about the world. Just really, this is a topic to pay attention to. Um, Immigration, ICE, can they raid? What's going on? What happens if they show up with warrants? For organizations that do deal with the public in this way, I'm really hoping that they will share information as it comes out with their internal groups, because I think the misinformation is going to create an even bigger fear mindset around what will happen next.
Can you frame this for me in a sense of, when you say you need to look out for and protect privacy? So I'm trying to understand how ICE could impact the healthcare industry, in terms of what sorts of things could happen that could potentially cause a health provider to be in opposition of HIPAA.
So, so HIPAA is, so let's say someone comes to the unit and they want information on a patient, right? The only thing I can't give any information about that patient. I really shouldn't even tell you, where they are on the unit. They really should have gotten past security downstairs, right? So with healthcare, the
Can,
challenge
can
is
I
how
can
do
I
you maintain that patient confident?
can I ask one question? So you when you so you are you talking about
It's the Health Information Portability Act.
no, but are you talking about ICE agents coming into places
Yes,
and
they
then
come into places.
okay, now I
So
get
they've been doing this. This is not the first time they've been
you.
doing this for years since their existence.
Hmm.
And so all I'm saying is verify those ICE warrants and understand you can refuse entry. Okay. And there's a lot of misinformation going around about what can you refuse with ICE. Are you in violation of some of the mandates? That are you obstructing them from doing their job? And so I think it's very muddy right now, and healthcare, which hospitals are public places, health clinics tend to be public places. I think we need to really upskill on this. We've dealt with ICE before, we've been dealing with ICE forever, but there are some subtle changes that are happening, not even subtle changes that are happening in that particular area. So what does it look like, the presence of ICE in healthcare settings, if we're going to see that more, right? So does that undermine the ability for health systems to offer services without discrimination? Like, if I go to the hospital, will I be arrested?
Mhm.
Will I be arrested because I chopped my arm off while cutting someone's tree down for a suburban house? If I go to the hospital, will I be deported? This is what I want people to start thinking about. That this creates a fear mentality to the most vulnerable part of our society, which is when you get sick. Are you going to be afraid to come to us, people who have entered this community to help the public? Imagine being afraid. I'm having a heart attack, but I don't want to go to the hospital because what if they give my information to ICE? What if they turn me in? So I don't want people to. I want people to, especially in healthcare. I want us to be watching this, and I want us to be aware of, in the moment, what are our rights. And if you don't know, and you're a nurse or you're a physician, get in touch with the supervisors before you do anything. If someone shows up, get administration on board. Get your supervisors, your admins. They know the policy of the hospital. They should be tracking this, and they should be following this closely and making sure that the policies internally at hospitals and clinics are aligning with the currently changing policies that are coming out. And you also have to apply the state piece, the city piece, because, for example, New York City is a sanctuary city. I don't live in New York City, but we do know that some of that is shifting as their mayor aligns more closely to some of the policies coming out around immigration. So before, you might have been able to just rely on, here's what I know about those warrants. Now you really have to be savvy. And my expectation is not that the average physician or nurse on the floor knows like every detail about that, but I want our leaders at these groups to have this on their radar. And I want our frontline staff to say, sorry, let me get my supervisor. And please, administrative leaders, have your supervisors prepared, because this is going to happen. If you've ever worked a city hospital as an admin, you know that this was happening before. But now you have to be even smarter about what is that discussion going to be. I would love to see more town halls at hospitals about what are we going to do? How are we going to protect our patients? How are we going to keep our EDs fair and open? And how are we going to say to the community, you can still sit with us, you can still come here, we can still provide care. We can still help you. Do not be afraid. And
What
I want this to be a true statement.
what is EDs?
Emergency departments.
Oh, okay,
Sorry.
got you. Yeah. See, I told she's in the healthcare, y'all. It's thank you for bringing this topic to the table today because again, and here's the thing, what I would like in a perfect world is us for to stop to separate politics from the work, right? And you said, well, you just had a conversation about no, I didn't have a conversation about DEI. I had a conversation about building relationships, right? And you're having a conversation about providing health care, right? Separate from politics, right? This is providing health care and protecting people. It's not you have to take a stand one side or the other on the immigration law. It is understanding the patient's rights and equipping your staff to understand what the patient's rights are and what to do in case this incident happens, and so that you are not divulging or breaking HIPAA standards and laws, and you are protecting the rights of your patient because whether they're documented or undocumented, they are a patient and
Yes.
they are afforded, rights under HIPAA, and to be knowledgeable about that. And I just wonder how many healthcare providers are taking this proactive stance that you said. And you said, I don't expect every physician and every nurse or healthcare provider to know, but what is really challenging about today's times is that we are required to know more than because we've got a lot of information at our fingertips. And so to some extent, we are required to know more and to be more savvy, I think.
And it's very nuanced, right? Because not only do we have sort of the federal level, right? But we have the federal level, we have the state level, and then we have the city level. So knowing more means to me, if it were me working as a bedside nurse, means knowing that my admins and my nursing supervisors and my supervisors are going to be the experts, that I can trust, that I can say, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to get the supervisor and they're going to know the correct answer. And if they don't know the answer, before letting anything happen, they're going to say, let's hold up. Let me check with my administrators because you know what? I'm not clear on this because everything has shifted so quickly. And so I do want to say that the administration did end protections that were preventing ICE from searching in healthcare organizations, but that doesn't, or doing raids on clinics, but that doesn't mean that HIPAA is not still in place. So just remember, your population is aware that these raids are happening and that there's a fear of going to the emergency room. And then think of what that does, because let's say I have COVID, or let's say I have, I don't, let's throw the bird flu out there, right? The next potential pandemic. If I don't seek medical care, what does that happen to our community? Does that mean a faster spread of infectious diseases because I'm not seeking care? If I am being beaten by my partner and I am afraid to go to the emergency room because I am afraid that ICE will either deport me or deport my partner, and there's a whole, intimate abuse, there's a whole layer to that. Domestic violence, it's layered, so I'm putting that in there too. Like, what does that say to women about domestic violence? and our protection of women and children? What does it say when we're looking at perhaps the protections for children being rolled back? What does it say about their ability to have safe health care? Um, so there are certain things that have been pulled back, such as federal benefits. Which is the funding for sanctuary cities. They're talking about removing some of the funding. So what happens there? So is this making us a healthier society, or is this going to make us more vulnerable? And the biggest thing I can say is these ICE warrants, just verifying, like, is what kind of warrant am I looking at? Because they do have warrants, and but there is a difference between the types of warrants that are out there. And so it almost feels like there's an upskilling that has to happen that I'm not sure we all have the skills for. So I am saying, like, if you're in the healthcare area and you're a bedside nurse, turn it over to your supervisor. I say that for everything. Like, if you don't know, don't just try to make the decision yourself, because we are held to a different standard than the general public. You can be liable for HIPAA violations, organizations and individuals. So as we work through, what is this going to look like? How is this going to play out at the bedside? I really want us as health organizations and health providers to be thinking about this, because this is a public health issue, right? So what is my ethical obligation as a provider, as a healthcare provider? Am I ethically mandated to save your life, or should I be calling ICE on you? These are real thoughts and concerns. And what about advocates in the community who work with immigrant populations? Like, a lot of bridge building has been made. Are we destroying these bridges? Healthcare was the last bastion of trust, right? What if I can't trust my doctor? What if I can't trust my nurse? And we're people in these roles. So I know that there are healthcare providers who think certain ways too about immigrants in our country. So, but this is especially complex for healthcare.
Yeah, I guess the tentacles of this is so, far reaching. Um, and I think the message today in all of our conversations is that really it's really incumbent these days for leaders to be even better equipped than they have been in the past to deal with changing um, regulations, to deal with the changing landscape in which people are living and how it's impacting them financially. What there are holds in terms of federal hiring. There's been a hold in terms in rescinding of job uh, uh, what's the word, offers for the VA, right? I mean, we're talking about people, your everyday people, your employees, right? Everyday people trying to navigate an increasingly difficult life outside of your doors, as well as within the workplace. And what it's all calling for is strengthening your leadership bench, right? To make certain that you're being proactive, to make certain that you're anticipating what's coming forward, making sure that you are training your people to be able to adapt to changing times, as well as give them the support that they need so that they can focus on the work at hand when they're at work.
Yes.
So that's our talk today.
Yes. And just one more thing on the ICE thing. I really encourage healthcare organizations to start looking at what is their ICE protocol, and developing a response for that, so that your employees at the bedside are not caught unaware on what are their particular needs to cover from a HIPAA basis, and also what can ICE do, right? Like what happens when they show up. Because, most of us have not had to deal with that as healthcare providers. Unless you're working in the emergency department, on most units, there is a low police presence unless you have someone who, is going to go to jail after they recover, or, have a police officer sitting with them because they're arrested. But most of us won't encounter that. So really, that's my final. I know we're done.
I have a hard stop at 10 because I'm
Hard
supposed to be on another call now. Thank you all for your time with us today. Join us next week. Fill in the brain drain, one unscripted conversation at a time. Thank you, Tahitia.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more insightful discussions every Friday. Remember, the brain drain stops here, so keep the conversation going by connecting with us on social media or visiting our website. Until next time, stay curious and keep filling your mind with knowledge. See you next week, Friday, on MT Fridays.